Welcome aboard the Ear to There podcast, the podcast that'll help you vacation like a pro in any Disney destination. For those of you standing, please sit down and hold on throughout our journey and get ready to learn how to have the time of your life. And now, here's your host, Phil Gramlich.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There podcast. I am your host, Phil Gramlich, and I know you have heard the phrase, fake it until you make it, right? So this week on the intro and the outro, I am totally doing a poor job of faking it. Our oldest daughter got a stomach bug the other day. The other two followed suit. And then last night, overnight, my wife and I caught the fun stomach bug as well. So even though I recorded this episode over a week ago, I didn't record the intro and outro, so I'm doing that now. So this is episode number 60. For the week of March 13th, 2017. On episode 60, I invite my friend Herb Leibacher from the world of Walt to talk about the top fun facts of World Showcase. So here we go. Well, you definitely should go grab a drink, grab a snack, because I won't be. And as a famous mouse once said, on with the show. Joining me to talk all about his favorite World Showcase secrets is a man who has spent a ton of time in the pavilions around Epcot. As a matter of fact, he's been known to get a little rowdy during the Flower and Garden Festival, so I'm glad he's not there tonight while we record. He's the man in charge of everything over at the World of Walt Disney fan site. Mr. Herb Leibacher, welcome back to the show.
Phil, thank you very much, and I'm afraid that in addition to time, I've spent a lot of money around World Showcase.
Yeah, that is true, especially if you go for one of the festivals. You will. I remember before the Magic Band, they had the festival band. Do you remember that?
Oh, and yeah, they still do.
Oh, they still do that. I didn't realize they did it. Yeah, and you could load it up with like a certain amount of money, and then walk around. And yeah, I did that. I spent a good amount of money at Food and Wine Festival because you're like, this was only $4. But then you do it 30 times. And
yeah, exactly. You can go broke at $7 at a time.
Yeah, you really can. But whatever. You're
fun.
There on vacation. Who cares?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I thought this would be a cool topic. Because Epcot, I think, is fun. It's fun. It is fun. But it's full of fun, like little secrets and things that you wouldn't expect, right? Like, just look at the illuminated pathways that are back behind Spaceship Earth at night. And then, and that's Future World. I know we're going to talk about World Showcase, but then the water fountain that talks to you that's over by Mouse Gears, or at least I think it still does. I'm not sure if that still has the voice when you would drink. But I love that they have these little things that you may not go and look for, but, they're there. And it's these little secrets and these little, facts of World Showcase. And I love that stuff. So I'm excited about this topic.
Me too. I think it's what makes Disney special. It's those little facts and the little details, I should say, and the storytelling that sets Disney apart. And it's fun to dig into those topics.
That's the exact storytelling is exactly right. That's like the coolest. Like, I forget. I don't know if I heard this on a podcast or if I've read this, or I probably have heard it and read it a million times. But it's seriously, like, everything in Disney has a story. Even like the littlest, tiniest detail is there for a reason. And I think that's so cool. And it is what keeps Walt. I was going to say, excuse me, it's what keeps me going back every year, but it's not really. It's more that I bought a vacation club contract and I'm going to be there for the next 40 years without a doubt.
So all the DVC people are very happy right now. Their master evil strategy is working and paying off nicely.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. That'll be edited out. Yeah, the DVC people definitely got their claws into me a few years ago. And not only did we buy once, but we added on. We bought again. Mm. So, yeah, we're those crazies. We're those people that we're like, we like going to Disney once a year. Why not 3 times a year? And now I'm down there for work and for let's be for real, quote unquote. This definitely be in quotes. Research trips. So
there you go.
Yeah, I have a research trip coming up in April for the Dark Side half marathon. So, but I actually am going to do research. I'm going to restaurants that I haven't done, and yeah, that's going to be a cool one. Anyway, sorry, tangent every single time. I can't even get through the first 3 minutes of a podcast without going off on a tangent. All right, so Herb, you're up. Let's go to you for your first one. You're the guest, and I'm actually interested, and so I don't steal your first one as well.
Okay, so at least I'll get one in on the show.
Yeah, right.
So you could steal all the others, but at least I'll get this one in.
You have one. That's good.
Okay, World Showcase Fun Facts. So when I think about World Showcase Spectaculars, I think about Illuminations, right? That's the show that's going on now, the Nighttime Spectacular, the big one. If you've been around Disney for a while, or maybe you're a trivia buff, you might think of the World Showcase Spectacular's Tapestry of Nations, which used to be a parade that would go around World Showcase. But if you are a true Disney nut and maybe kind of old, you might think of Kaleidoscope. So a lot of people probably have not heard of Kaleidoscope before, but it was the World Showcase Spectacular that took place from 1985 to 1987. It only took place on Saturdays and Sundays and was actually installed after attendance started to take a little bit of a dip. So Epcot opened back in 82, and by the time 84 came around, the park was just not performing as Disney wanted it to. Michael Eisner was in charge, and he said, we need to put something to pull people into this park. So every Saturday and Sunday, Disney World Showcase would present Kaleidoscope. So it had 60 different vehicles. There were ultralight planes, there were jet skis and sailboats and power boats, hang gliders, a little bit of fireworks, boats spraying water, and they would all go out and do this show on World Showcase Lagoon. It didn't last very long, just a couple of years, but I think it probably served its purpose. It doesn't really roll off the tongue when you say Kaleidoscope, but it was an important part of World Showcase history, and I think a fun fact about how the spectaculars there have evolved over the years.
Yeah, Herb, this is a really good one, and I don't have this on my list, and I never saw it, so I can't. My first trip to Walt Disney World was 91, 92. I always forget the year. I have to go back and look at my, the old VHS tapes. I have to go back and look. That I keep meaning to convert to DVDs, and at this point, DVDs are outdated. So now I have to figure out how to convert it to a DVD and then convert it to put it on my hard drive somewhere.
That's right.
But I never got to see it. I've read about it. It seems like it was one heck of a busy show going on that. I mean, it's a big, lagoon, but it's not. I imagine very 80s style costumes and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny that you said that about Eisner coming in, because it's also, I think, right the same time he came in and he was like, "Where's Mickey Mouse? Where are the characters? There's no characters here. Like, we have to start changing this park around."
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing some research recently and heard that people were surveyed as they went out of Epcot, and they said, grand vision, very interesting, kind of educational, but just not that entertaining. And by the way, where's Mickey Mouse? Yeah. And so Eisner, to his credit, was able to take a step back from the original Disney employee vision, which was, this is all about entertainment. This is a different sort of park. Disney characters aren't here. And he was able to say, wait a second, we're not giving people what they want, and we're kind of paying for it in revenue issues, in attendance issues. So he was able to come in and fix that as the head of the company. Interesting time in the history.
Yeah, I mean, and what better way to hype up revenue than put some planes on World Showcase Lagoon and risk accidents and everything else every 30 seconds? That must have been interesting.
Yeah, this must have been a time when the pool of Disney lawyers was a little bit smaller than it is today. Because I can't imagine hang gliders going over the park these days. No, I mean there was enough of a thing with the drones, like people were worried about that. So yeah. I can't imagine the contracts that had to be signed by these performers. By the way, speaking of drones, I don't know why this hasn't happened yet, but did you see this is completely off the mark, I'm sorry already, but did you see over in the park that shall not be named in their hotels, they're going to have a robot that will bring you room service to your rooms? I think I have seen that, yes.
So Disney's got to one up it now. They need drones that will bring room service or towels, or if you forget your toothbrush, like a Mickey Mouse balloon drone that kind of comes on in. I don't know. They call you and like a drone is outside. You open the door, it's like floating there. They need something like that.
It could fly down the halls and give you a haircut if you're lucky.
Yeah, there you go. Well, they can't let that other park beat them out on something like that. So
competition is good. We'll all win.
That's true. I still haven't gotten over there to see the second fancy land that they put in. Every time I go to Florida, I'm like, well, I have to spend my time at Disney, so I never get over there. But soon I'll have to get over there. All right,
research trip.
Yes, I know Amy will love that too. She's starting to really love my research trips. She's like, do you really have to go back again? Okay. So yeah, I did not have now. Let's see if I pronounce it correctly. Kaleidoscope, is that right? That is really difficult to say.
Yeah,
especially when you're me and you talk as fast as I do. I have to really slow myself down for these podcast episodes. So, I mean, Herb, you and I have sat, and especially after I have a drink or two, man, my Philly accent comes out really comes on really strong. I start really talking fast, and yeah, you can't even understand anything I'm saying. So, kaleidoscope is not a word that I'll be using often.
You cover a lot of territory quickly. And that's good. Yeah. It's admirable.
Yeah. People just stare at me. When I'm in a restaurant at Disney, the waiters and waitresses, they just look at me like I have two heads. All right. So here's my first one. And I guess it's a secret, but it's a kind of a well-known secret at this point. But I love in World Showcase, and I've grown to love these since I've had kids, the KidCot stations. I love stopping by with my kids and letting them kind of interact with the cast members that are from the different countries of the pavilions that you're in. There's activities for them. They can, color the Duffies. They can, I think in China, they make fans and the cast members from China will put their names on them. All kinds of stuff that you can do. You can learn about their culture. You can learn about their history, their language, ask them anything about the icons and the things in the pavilion and what they're supposed to I can't speak. See, there we go. Talking too fast again. My mind is way ahead of my mouth. You can ask them all about the icons and the landmarks in the pavilion. And when we were there in January one night, we went back. Which one thing I think you really should do if you don't do it a lot is really go back and explore those pavilions. Because if you just walk past them, you're missing out on a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a ton of stuff to see back there. And we were kind of walking through the Morocco pavilion, and we came upon the KidCot station with the cast member who was sitting there, and they had the Duffy the Bear like figures on the stick that you could color and decorate. And my kids did it, and they'd sat for like a half hour just coloring these Duffies. My wife and I got to sit and relax and just kind of talk. And then at the end, when they were finished, the cast member from Morocco that was there wrote all three of my kids' names in Arabic on the back of the Duffy. And we still have them because it was like such a cool thing. And I think that's something that, especially if you're a parent with little kids, you may not even know they're there. You might just walk right past them.
Yeah, I agree. Why spend $1 billion on a new attraction when for a couple crayons and a piece of paper, you can entertain kids for a long time?
Absolutely.
I think kids really do love that. You see them with the Duffy on a stick all the time. And it really is a chance for them to interact with people from a different culture. And that's pretty cool.
It is very cool. Herb, I am so sorry. I don't know if you can hear that. My daughter banging on the door. Hold on 1 second. Yes. I'm sorry. She's supposed to be asleep. How can I help you? What, guys? She's having some trouble with what?
I don't know.
All right. I'll be back in 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll be right back. I think you were saying that why spend the money on that, the attraction and all that if you could just do the KidCot stations. I forget what the last thing you said was. I'm sorry.
That was it. Yep. That was all.
All right. So, yeah. So, I do. Anyway, after that fantastic interruption, that would be something I leave in the podcast if I can find a way to edit it, because you should understand the craziness that is my house. If I don't get the kids out of the house, there's no chance I want to record a podcast. Even with this, my studio that I built, my little room, they're still banging on the door. And I put one of those spinner doorknobs on the outside of it so they can't open it. So they just sit there and kick it and slam on the door.
You need multiple barriers, I think.
I'm
You
gonna make
build a little boat.
Yeah, I need a panic room. Just lock them out. So anyway, yeah. Again, the kid God stations are great. My kids love them, and it is something that, like, before I had kids, I'm pretty sure they were there. I never even thought twice to look at them. So there's something that's really cool that you can really, the kids, and listen, Amy and I went, like, they were sitting and playing, they were coloring, they were talking to a cast member. I said to Amy, I want to run and grab us a drink. She was like, yeah. So I ran and grabbed us a beer. We sat and had a beer. We had an adult conversation while our kids were playing. It was great. So that's something I think that's really cool.
And they're easy to miss if you don't keep your eyes out for them, like a lot of things at Disney World.
Yeah.
You kind of have to either know it's there or listen to the Ear to There podcast and learn that it's there.
There you go. Thank you, Herb. All right. Speaking of the podcast, we should probably move on. You're up for your next one before my kids come back down and start kicking the door down again.
Okay. All right. So when you walk around World Showcase, you see all kinds of interesting architecture in the buildings and restaurants and fun things to do. And as you stroll around the little more than a mile promenade, you might think, this place looks like it's pretty well built out. But interestingly, there are, depending on how you count them, about 8 different expansion pads where Disney could still add new country pavilions in. In fact, there's an expansion pad between just about every country except for Norway and China, because they're sort of built up tight together, and maybe between the American Adventure and Japan, depending on how you slice and dice it. So there's a tremendous amount of room for expansion there. No firm plans that I've heard about recently for expansion, but there's certainly the space for it.
Yeah, so the rumors have been flying. I've heard some rumors about what is going away at Epcot, what might be replacing those things going away at Epcot. I mean, Epcot's changing. I don't know how much of World Showcase is going to be affected by it. But yeah, if you look at a map, like an aerial view of it, it's remarkable how much room is in between those pavilions. Like, you could easily fit a bunch more countries in there. You said 8 or 9?
Yeah.
And I don't know, you would still have that 1.25 mile walk from Canada to Mexico,
yep.
or the 300 foot walk if you go the other way. That they're very close to each other if you go that way. But yeah, there's so much room for expansion. I always okay, if let's say you have 3 countries that you want to bring in and put into the World Showcase. What are your top 3? And I'm catching you off guard here. You were not prepared for this, so I'm sorry.
I am not prepared for this. So let's see if I can do it off the top of my head.
Hey, you've caught me off guard when we do your podcast, when we do the question in the beginning. That catches you off guard. So
yeah, but that's more fun when I can catch you off guard than when you catch me off guard. Just so you know, for the record. So I think you could look at it a couple different ways. So I think one way would be, what sort of countries could find sponsors so that they're going to be able to pay for this, because Disney's not going to pay for it. And if you think about it that way, you probably think about countries like maybe Russia or China. Well, China's already there, or India. I think it would be interesting to see some more Asian countries there. I think India, I think maybe Indonesia, Thailand. I would think there'd be tremendous restaurant opportunities there, and very interesting cultures, very interesting history and architecture and food, basically food. So that's not necessarily 3, but that's my answer.
Yeah, no, the very good answer. I always kind of thought like Australia, but then I would want Australia in Animal Kingdom. If you're going to do an Australia anywhere, I think you have to put it over at Animal Kingdom, because the animals are such like a huge part of that, continent / country, that you would kind of need, you would need it to be, you need the animals to be represented, I think. I would love, I don't know, there's so many that, I guess you can't say Ireland because it's a part of the UK, so that doesn't really work, but I don't know. Besides Australia, I may go. I like the Asian idea, the Asian countries. There are plenty, just for the food aspect of it. You're right.
Yeah.
And India is a great one because you imagine having like the Taj Mahal in the background, like as that's like the weenie to draw you in. That'd be really, really cool.
Yeah, and there are plenty of very large companies who could afford to sponsor it, and I'm a big fan of Indian food, so I'm going to vote for that.
I'm a little afraid of Indian food. I'm kind of a wimp. I try. Yeah, I'm so not adventurous. I get, my family gives me a lot of grief for that stuff. Like we'll go out and you go and they're like, I go to the same burger and cheesesteak place every time. I'm not an adventurous eater, but I shouldn't have admitted that because now that I have, I'm sure I'll get emails to be like, you have to try this, you have to try that. So I'll eat German food. Speaking of German food, that's actually where I was going to go with my next one. Is over. See that segue? Look, I'm getting good at this.
Very nice, very nice, very slick.
Yeah, right. My next one. Okay, so over in the Germany pavilion, if you're coming in, if you're facing the pavilion and with the lagoon to your back, and you look down towards the back of the pavilion, kind of go to your right-hand side, right? Walk past like the pretzel and beer cart, walk through all those tables and chairs that are there, through the courtyard, through underneath the, when you get under where the little stand is to your left, there is a mural painted on the wall. It looks like a big doorway. And in fact, it's because it was supposed to be a big doorway. Go knock on that mural and you'll hear it's hollow behind it. And it's basically a piece of plywood that's painted this as in a mural. And the reason it's hollow and the reason there's room back there was where the entrance for the Rhine River attraction was supposed to be in Germany. And I think that's so cool, and I like showing people that because how different would Epcot have been if they had followed through with a bunch of those attractions that were supposed to go in? I mean, they had the Rhine River one in Germany. They had thoughts of putting the Mount Fuji roller coaster in Japan. There was a Mary Poppins attraction that was supposed to go into the United Kingdom. So this is just kind of a leftover like artifact of what was supposed to be there. And I just get a kick out of it. If you see it from a distance, it looks like it's a concrete or a solid wall with a mural on it. But when you walk up to it and knock on it, you'll clearly hear that there's nothing back there. So I always think that's cool. That the Epcot that kind of would have been is very cool to think about.
I agree, and this was actually on my list too, the Rhine River Cruise.
Sorry.
So no, that's okay. It was a great one to put on here. You were supposed to be able to look through the Black Forest and Oktoberfest and Heidelberg, and I think it would have been a lot of fun. And instead of emptying you into a gift shop, it would empty you into the Oktoberfest restaurant that's there and kind of tempt you to go and eat. So I understand that some of the show building was built, but not all of it. Some people have said the full space is there, but it's my understanding that not the entire space was built up. But there is still a very big show building behind the German pavilion. So I'm hopeful that maybe someday we'll see something like that. Maybe that will be part of the reimagining of Epcot. That would be very cool to see. Yeah,
I wonder if they could still, what's set in Germany, right? Snow White is, I think. Am I crazy? Snow White?
No, you're right. I think so.
So I know they've already had the Snow White Scary Adventure, and then now they have the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, but they could put a Snow White kind of boat ride in there. Why not?
Oh, sure.
I'll spend Disney's money. I'll say, might as well do that. Well, if they're going to add all the intellectual property to World Showcase, which it looks like they are kind of set to do, why not? I mean, I heard some things from cast members that I don't want to mention because I think they're a little stronger than rumor, and I don't want to get people who I know into trouble. But it does seem like the IP is coming to the park, and I, for one, welcome it completely. I get the original view and the original idea of Epcot, but I think you kind of have to change with the times. And Walt Disney wasn't a guy who who sat in his laurels and didn't change. Like he was ahead of the technology, man. He was ahead of everything. And if, I know he would be 116 years old if he was around right now. So I can't exactly say if he was around, but yeah, I think if it was in this day and age, he would see, how much intellectual property they have and how much it would fit into World Showcase. I think he'd be all for it. I mean, as long as it's done tastefully and you keep the integrity of the countries, which I think Norway did. I really do. After seeing it in person, I think they did a great job. Looking at the architecture of the buildings. I was just talking about this with somebody the other day, like the architecture of Anna and Elsa's meet and greet and even the outside of the new Frozen attraction. They did a great job. I think it very clearly still looks like the country of Norway.
I think you're right. And Walt, at least from what I know of him, would never shy away from cross-promotion, where movie spawns the attraction, spawns the merchandise. And so if Disney does start to fit more characters into World Showcase or just Epcot generally, I never say, well, Walt would want this or that, who knows? But I personally think he would be all for it.
Yeah, I think so too. Like we said, the guy, he was in TV before anyone thought TV was a good idea. Everybody thought it was going to fail. And here he's putting all his money into Disneyland and TV. He wasn't afraid to take changes, to make changes. I mean, so I think it would have been awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Herb, you're what do you got? You're up for your next one.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the business side of Epcot. And way back when Disney likes other people to pay for the stuff that they build. And who wouldn't, right? It's a great way to do things, to have sponsors to foot the bill and share the risk and actually to collaborate with. And so the original idea for the pavilions around World Showcase was that Disney approached countries and thought that country governments would go ahead and pay for the design and the construction of the pavilions. And when they started to talk to these different governments, they just weren't interested. In fact, there were only two different governments that actually footed any money for building their respective pavilions. So one was Morocco, which was fully funded by the Moroccan government, or funded by, not fully. And the original Norway pavilion was in part funded by the Norwegian government. But all of the other ones were funded by companies like the American Adventure by Coca-Cola and Japan by the Mitsukoshi, if I'm saying that right, Mitsukoshi, I don't know. And now the UK has got a lot of different sponsors, and they're like Twinings Tea. So the original idea of where to get the money didn't work out, but there's always another way to get to where you need to go. And so using corporate sponsors, it helped to pay for a lot of what we see today in World Showcase.
Yeah, and that's actually a trivia question I heard recently was, what is the pavilion, the World Showcase pavilion that was run and sponsored by a country? And the answer was Morocco.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love, I don't know how much more you have. Do you have anything else about the Morocco pavilion on your list? Because I wanted to mention a couple things.
No, not about Morocco.
So, okay, a couple things about Morocco. And this is, I'm sorry to kind of steal yours a little bit, but I love the fact that they had Moroccan like artisans come out and create like the tile works and the mosaics and stuff in the pavilion. And I love the idea that there's imperfections in all of the art that they design there, because nothing, I forget the line, but the only God can create perfection. So they can't make those look perfect. I thought that was a really cool touch in the pavilion there in Morocco.
Yeah.
And my other thing about Morocco that I was thinking was, and you know what? I'll make that my next one. So because I really like this. I really like this one. But Disney has used, going back to your point, Disney's used sponsorships ever since Walt opened Disneyland. Like they've always had them. That's why it cracked me up when people were so upset about Starbucks being in the parks. I was like, dude, when Disneyland opened, every store had a sponsor. Like everything. Every attraction had a sponsor. Like Walt did it that way to get the darn park built. Like he had to take on sponsors. There was, I forget the name of the coffee company. It might have been Maxwell House. I forget what it was, that opened with Disneyland. like it had the name, the coffee company's name, in the name of the store, of the bakery or whatever it was. So the guy never. People, it's funny that like how Disney fans especially hate like that change. They don't want anything to change, but you forget that almost the whole enterprise was built on sponsorship. I mean, Walt had to convince banks to give him money, and it wasn't done like they didn't have the Disney company didn't have all that money back then to just build whatever they want. I mean, now they do, and now they could build. I mean, like Star Wars. I don't know how much of Star Wars Land is going to have sponsorships. I guess it could. The food, I'm sure, will, but it's always going to go back to Star Wars from here. Sorry, I'm always thinking about it. But yeah, so my next one, what I wanted to talk about with Morocco was, so one thing that's really cool that I think a lot of people don't see when you're in World Showcase, when you're walking around, is when you're across the lagoon and you're looking at Morocco from the other side of the lagoon. It's what Morocco would look like. It's like the browns and the beiges and the reddish like colors of all the buildings. If you look above Morocco, there's a tall building that kind of blends into the background, and you can actually see the Tower of Terror from Epcot. And if you didn't you might not even realize that you're looking at it, because when they built the Tower of Terror, the reason they chose that paint scheme was because they knew from certain points in Epcot you'd be able to see it behind the Morocco Pavilion. So they painted it in a way where it would completely blend in to in the background to Morocco. So I just thought it's such a cool like secret and story that I don't think I knew that until a couple of years ago. And I kind of, me, I'm a Disney nerd through and through. I pride myself on that stuff. But I just thought that was, to have the foresight to think, all right, look, we want to build this huge attraction at Hollywood Studios, but, we don't want to ruin the sightlines at Epcot and World Showcase. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And it really shows a lot of foresight in the planning. You hear sometimes about the balloon tests that they do around Disney property, where they'll float a balloon up to a certain height and then check out what you can see, where you can see that, and how much you can see it. And I can imagine they floated some balloons to test that out when they were originally planning for the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
And all the people thought it was aliens or like Area 51. Like, I don't know. Remember the dragon when they opened New Fantasyland? The dragon that flew over the Magic Kingdom and all?
Yeah, I saw the videos.
Oh, man, I wish I was there for that. I'm hoping they do that with Pandora. I have a feeling that that's not going to happen. But how cool would it be if you're sitting there? I don't know if you saw that the menus were kind of released for the Pandora restaurants in the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. How cool would it be sitting there having your Pandora cocktail, and then you see like the banshees flying over your head, breathing fire? I think that'd be very, very cool.
And all the lawyers say no.
Yeah, lighting the new floating mountains on fire on opening night. Yeah, that probably wouldn't be good. But
let's put some explosive propane tanks in the air and hang them over our guests. That sounds like a good idea.
All right, ruining my dreams. A guy can dream. I'm all excited about this. By the way, are you going to go to the opening of the world of, what is it? The world of Pandora, the world of Avatar?
I will definitely be there. I don't know if I'll be there on opening day. What I'm hoping is that as a local resident, that I'll be able to go maybe before it opens, and they'll have some soft openings. Yeah, so I know there's never a guarantee for that, but that's what I'm hoping for, that maybe in a month or two before the official opening, I'll get a sneak peek. So fingers crossed there.
Yes, I did not get the invite for the as media for the World of Pandora opening, even though I did try.
Really? You didn't get that?
I got my first ever rejection letter from Disney. I never had gotten one before, and I wrote to them and I asked them if I could come down and cover it for my podcast and blog. And they wrote me back and they were really nice. They're like, okay, well, we need your numbers. Like, what are your numbers? So I gave them my numbers and they wrote me back and said, not going to happen, buddy. It was a very nice rejection letter.
But thank you for asking.
But it was, you know what it was? It was call us or contact us when you want to cover something smaller. So I think like maybe when a menu change or something happens at a restaurant, they'll invite me down for that. But not for Pandora. They're like, guys, they're like, dude, we're going to have 60 minutes here. Like, get out of here. Time magazine. I don't even know. I don't read Time or watch 60 Minutes. So I don't know if they still exist, but I think they do.
Hey, Phil, we repainted the trash cans. Come check this out.
New emblem on the Main Street trash cans. You can cover that. You dork. All right. Wait, now, whose turn was it? Was it mine? It was yours, right?
I think it's up to me.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm going to go to the American Adventure, the sponsor pavilion of World Showcase. So oftentimes Disney will use forced perspective to make things look bigger. But interestingly, they used forced perspective to make the American Adventure look a little smaller.
And now you stole one of mine. That was on my list.
Oh, yes! All right. That's payback, man. That's payback.
As Daniel's son says to Johnny on the beach in Karate Kid, now we're even. Now we're even. Okay, go ahead. After he punches him in the face. Okay.
Please don't punch me. So the American Adventure is actually 5 stories tall, but Disney designed it to make it look like it was only 3 stories tall. And they did that based on the horizontal lines in the building, but also because the doors and the windows in that facility are just humongous, much bigger than you would actually put in a real building. And so that helps to hide the show building for the American Adventure show, which is a favorite, by the way. And it also helps to make sure that the American Adventure doesn't really dwarf everything that's all around it, because it is a very big facility. So I think that's an interesting use of kind of a reversed force perspective to make something look smaller instead of bigger.
Yeah, so it's the exact reason why it was on my list is because it was that reverse force perspective. I thought that was really cool. And it's one that I actually got in researching for this episode because I never knew. I knew it was bigger, and I knew those the doorways and the windows and all were much, much bigger on the first floor. But I never realized it was actually a 5-story building, so it worked on me.
Yeah, me too.
I mean,
it was very effective.
I completely bought it.
Yep.
And I read that it was that if they used an actual 3-story building, I'm sorry, I don't know if you just said this. I was kind of listening to myself think for a second. I do that sometimes. Don't take that personally. But they said that a building of that era wouldn't be visible from across World Showcase. So they had to make sure they made it bigger. And I think they did the same thing, kind of reversed in Canada. The big building they have in Canada is actually only 3 stories tall, but because of the windows and the forced perspective, they make it look like it's 5 stories tall. That was cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And the Eiffel Tower is the other example around World Showcase where I think it was built to 1/10 scale. So if you're far away, it really does look like it's pretty big. But the Eiffel Tower in the France Pavilion is teeny weeny.
Yeah, you know, I read something about that they said they use some kind of sound system or something to keep the birds away from the Eiffel Tower. Because if a bird landed on the top of the Eiffel Tower, it would look like an alien, like an enormous giant bird, because it's the way it's built is, and you're not seeing the whole Eiffel Tower. You're supposed to when you're looking at it, there's supposed to be the whole base and everything behind the buildings, and it's supposed to be off in the distance than what you're looking at. And they did a great job. Like when those pictures that you take from the pavilion or even from that bridge going over the pavilion really look like the Eiffel Tower's in the background, and it looks huge. Yeah. So, yeah, they did an awesome job with that. Again, some of these little things that we're pointing out are stuff that you never would notice. Like, you never would pick up on unless you had 2 Disney nerds like me and you telling them. Because some of it's really, really difficult to figure out.
Yeah, it is. That's why we have to share our nerddom.
Yeah, of course. Then people love this stuff. I've gotten emails from people, and they're like, because when I do the Word of the Week episodes, and when I'll do like a food one, or I'll do something about a current attraction, And then I always hear from at least one person that'll say, hey, I really miss your history ones or your facts, like your fun facts about the parks that you do. And yeah, this kind of thing goes over well. So I'm hoping this episode goes over well because we're giving out some, let's be for real, we're going to have some awesome knowledge here. This is good. This is stuff that nobody knows or talks about.
And they're getting it for free. I mean,
absolutely.
How can you beat that?
You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. All right. So, here's one that I have. And I don't know. This might be is this my fifth already? It's close. I stopped counting because you took one of mine and I took one of yours. And now it's like, I don't even know where we are. So one that I like, and I don't know which Imagineer this was. I think it was Marty Sklar, but I'm not 100% sure. When Epcot was being built, when World Showcase was being built, they were, the Imagineers were walking around and looking at the buildings, and it was fairly close to being open. And they were in the United Kingdom Pavilion, and I think it was Marty Sklar, but I might be wrong. I'll have to look that up, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself in the show notes. But he was looking up at the rooftops, and he said, something's wrong, and he couldn't put his finger on it. And then he realized that the chimneys were clean. They were way too clean, and they didn't look like it was lived in. They looked like new buildings. So he had Disney Imagineers go up there with paint to actually paint soot on the chimneys on all the rooftops in the UK Pavilion. Mm-hmm. And now when you go, it looks like they've been there for decades or, a century. And it's such a cool, they have been there for decades now, but for 100 years. And it's a little detail that, I don't know how the average, or even if the average guest would ever pick up on the fact that there wasn't soot on the chimneys, but they did, and they put it there. And when you look at it now, the story makes a lot more sense. So I thought that was a really cool one, and a really one that you should look for when you're there, because think about how crazy that is that they actually thought, hey, we have to make this look completely lived in. We have to make this look like it's hundreds of years old. So put this up there. It was very cool.
Wow, I don't think I knew that. Next time I go to the UK Pavilion, I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah, just look for they have, Herb, you don't have to leave your house. You can look it up on the internet. There's pictures. Don't worry about going.
This is worth a research trip now.
But yeah, I thought that was a really cool one. I've now I'm trying to think. I have a few more, but I think I'm only going to do one more. So if you have one of your home run hitters to finish off with, you should probably hit it out of the park.
All right, no pressure. Well, we'll end on this one. So Via Napoli in the Italy Pavilion is a very popular restaurant that makes some incredible pizza. And a lot of people say that the taste of the pizza is very authentic to what you might get in Italy. And there's a key to why the pizza tastes so good. And that is that Disney actually brings in water from Pennsylvania. Why Pennsylvania? Because the mineral content of water in Pennsylvania happens to be very similar to the mineral content of water in Italy, and it's the water that makes the pizza dough taste the way it does. So if you're looking for pizza that's a lot like what you might be able to experience in a real trip to Italy, go over to Via Napoli, and the pizza dough there is very authentic and tastes similar because they ship in the water.
Or you could just come to my house because I have that mineral kind of water out of my faucet because I live in Pennsylvania.
So maybe you could start selling your water to Disney in exchange for more DVC points or something. I could.
Oh my God, that would be great. I would make that. You know what? I'm going to write up the contract. We're going to get this taken care of. But no, so it's funny that you mentioned that because for a while I was under the impression, I read somewhere or something that Disney actually had the water flown in from Naples. And I think that was one of the misconceptions that was out there for a while, that they did that. And then I read, just as you said, no, they found a water that's super similar. I don't know what that's not even a word. Similar. And they bring it in. So that's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd start bottling my own water and just putting it on pallets and sending it down to Disney. And I'll make it a lot cheaper than whatever company in Pennsylvania is doing it. So, all right, my last one. I'm looking, trying to figure out which one I want to do. All right. So, do I want to go back to... Yeah, this is the problem when I have too many things on my list. I might have to edit some of this out. All right. So I mentioned Germany. Okay, here's one that I like, and I think I mentioned this to you on your podcast, and I think it's a really cool one. And it's the temple. It's the Temple of Heaven in China, right? I heard that's what it's called.
Yes.
Forget the name.
Yep.
So the Temple of Heaven in the China Pavilion has the inside. It's an acoustically perfect room, which is I think it's a 1/3 size replica of the real one that's in China. So when you go in there, there's a little spot you can see for the exact middle of the room. And when you stand on that spot, and if there's not a whole lot of other people in there that are talking, which is a problem now because Mulan meets inside there. So you used to be able to go in there and it was quiet and you got to try this out a little more. Now that Mulan meets in there, it might be a little difficult to find a time when you can try this. But stand in the middle of the room and talk, and your voice echoes directly back to you, and you hear your voice as other people hear it. And it creeped me out the first time I did it, because you're used to hearing yourself in your own head, and when you hear your own voice coming back, it's weird. Like, it is a weird thing, but it's cool, and a lot of people don't know about it. And I love little, like, how did Disney realize and how did they figure out, like, okay, this is what it does in the real temple, so we have to do the exact same thing here. It's amazing that they do stuff like that. So I think that's a really cool one. So try to look at your times guide and know when Mulan is not meeting there, and then go and try it out. I think I mentioned this to you before, right? And you hadn't tried it?
Yes, that's right.
Have you tried it since?
It's on my list.
Oh, you got to do it. It's cool. And and like, it's funny when I've done it, I'm like, oh, do I really? This is before I did the podcast or any podcast, and I'm like, oh man, do I really sound like that? And now I listen to myself because I have to go back and edit these podcasts. And in the beginning, I have to tell you, I'm sure it's the same thing for you, because I don't think as podcasters, does anybody enjoy the sound of their own voice? I don't think we do.
No, definitely not me.
No, and I don't at all. So going back, not you, I mean myself.
Oh, I know what you meant.
But going back and like, I listen to it, I'm like, oh man, like you notice everything wrong that you say. And then in the beginning, I was one of those crazy people that edited everything out of my podcast. But now I pretty much just let it roll. People are listening to it, whatever. They like it. It's fine. But if you want to know what you sound like to someone else and you're not a podcaster, go to the temple in China. It's cool. You'll hear it. And it's a neat effect. And tell Mulan I said hello, because she will be in there. But I was talking to Chuck on the podcast, Rodriguez, recently. And it's about time they got her in the air conditioning. Poor Mulan's been out in the sun for a couple years now. It's too hot for her to be out there in that costume. It's like when we that's why we met her this last trip. We had never met her before because it's like 95 degrees and she's out there in a kimono, and I kind of feel bad for her. But then you feel bad for you and your kids because you're sitting out there. There's no shade, so it's actually it's nice that they brought her inside.
I think Mulan filed a grievance in Mandarin, and Disney listened. So there you go.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. You know what's weird, Herb? When I was out in Disneyland, I was a year and a half ago. I was just in the morning. I got my coffee at my hotel. I was walking into the park, and right at the train station, the front of the train station in Disneyland, Mulan was meeting, and I was like, "That's weird that she's there." Like, there's apparently there's characters can be anywhere out there. There's no rules. Like, she can be wherever she wants.
That's not right. I'm sorry, but that's not right.
No, and Ariel was outside sitting on like the brick outside the train station, meeting guests. It was human Ariel with the blue dress and legs. So it was weird. Like and I just wasn't. I'm not used to it. And I've said this before too on this podcast, and I think others, that I'm not going to get past Stitch meeting in the Magic Kingdom's town square. I'm just like, I think I mentioned this to you. I think I got off all my soapbox the one day when you and I were talking about it. But does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me.
No, and I get it. At Disneyland, they probably don't have as many Asian backdrops to be able to use. So where is Mulan going to go? And maybe we're just blessed with a lot more backdrops that fit when it comes to Disney World, because there's so much more space, so many more options. But it just doesn't sit right. It just doesn't quite sit right.
No, it's just a weird fit, but whatever. Disneyland, listen, they do it right. I love, and this is one thing that Walt Disney World, I get it. They can't do it this way because so many of the guests are, once in a lifetime, once every 10 years, they save their money, they go. So they can't have like the free roaming characters. They need much more control. They need queues. They need that kind of thing. In Disneyland, man, it's a free for all. Like I was by myself, like, the true Disney loser, weirdo nerd that I am. And I was out there by myself. And I'm walking down Main Street, and all of a sudden, there's Alice in Wonderland by herself, picking flowers and smelling them at like a flower, like a little flower spot and right off Main Street, USA. And I'm like, man. And I just walked up to her and we started having a conversation. No character attendant in sight. And it's just cool. Like that kind of interaction, I completely get why they can't do it in Walt Disney World. She would be mobbed if she tried to walk down the street in, Main Street in Walt Disney World, but in the Magic Kingdom. But at Disneyland, because it's such a local park and it's such a more laid back park, they can do that kind of thing. So it's pretty cool. I remember, Mary Poppins just walking down Main Street with her umbrella up, and people were just taking pictures. Like no one was bothering her. If that happened in Magic Kingdom, man, she wouldn't get 5 feet without, 35 autograph books in her face and cameras.
Yeah.
But it's just weird. It's a different vibe on both coasts for basically, the same kind of park. So anyway, why not end the episode on a complete tangent? That's kind of how I do things, and whatever. All right, Herb. Well, thank you for coming on, and this is always fun. And you had I didn't mean to steal your ideas, so I apologize. And I didn't mean that I didn't like your voice.
I know what you meant.
I was talking about myself. But yeah, thank you again for coming on. This is a lot of fun.
I always enjoy it, Phil. Thank you.
Yeah, so if I mentioned the website, but if what else do you have going on? Where can people find you? What are you up to these days? I just want people to know, what Herb from World of Walt's got going on.
Worldofwalt.com is a website where it's all going on, articles most days of the week, and also facebook.com/worldofwalt. So fun to have discussions there and occasional Facebook Live broadcasts.
Yeah, the Facebook Live broadcasts are a lot of fun because, listen, every Saturday morning when it pops up, I'm like, oh, I literally run to my laptop and turn it on because I just love the live look-ins at the park. You do a great job. They're fun. You always have a good idea. You always have something cool to see. And I told you, I think I sent you a message like last week or a couple weeks ago that you did the Beauty and the Beast show. And we were just in Walt Disney World, and my kids really wanted to do it. We met up with a friend, actually our mutual friend, Johnny Shortsleeve and his family. And my kids, his kids didn't want to do it, and my kids did, but they were having fun, so we skipped it. So when you had the Beauty and the Beast video on Facebook Live, my kids sat and watched the whole thing. So it's so cool to get those look-ins. Look-ins or looks-in? How would you say that? Look-ins, I think.
Yeah, either way, it works.
Like cul-de-sac. Did you know the plural for cul-de-sac is not cul-de-sacs, it's cols-de-sac? That's weird.
Cul-de-sacies? No. Cul-de-sacs.
All right. So, but thank you for the videos. I do. My family, we watch them every week, so they're very, very cool.
Thanks, Phil. Glad it's fun to do it and fun to share it with other people.
Yeah. So will you be doing it in the summer when it's like 95 degrees and you have to get out there? You'll be out there probably at 20, getting in there and getting out of there before the heat really kicks in.
Yeah, because I do melt after a certain point, so I'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, you and me, man. We're pretty pale people. I got to stay. I have to stay out of the sun. I'm like in a hat and 50,000 proof sunscreen, and I'm not. I can't be in the sun. So, all right, Herb.
Me too.
Thank you again. This is a lot of fun, and have you on again soon if you're up for it.
Always. Thanks very much, Phil.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There podcast. I really, really hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you could hang in between my intro and my outro. I didn't want to miss a week, and I am so, so happy that I had episodes recorded, and all I had to do was edit one today. So as always, thank you so, so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There podcast each and every Monday morning, as well as a new episode of the Ear to There podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. And that'll be each and every Wednesday morning. I'm sorry, I forgot. Let me just go. Until next time, have a great week. Bye-bye.